Hello travelers, Boardman21 here, and today got a build for you. This is QuietForMe's Cold Spriggan. This is going to be based around Spirit Thorns and the Spriggan Form applying Frostbite. This will use Frozen Ire and the new Snowdrift boots that give you a ton of Frostbite effect based on how much freeze multi you have. So in this build you want to be stacking tons of freeze multi, tons of cast speed, and that's going to allow you to apply lots of it really quick. It's going to allow you to freeze enemies because it has a ton of Frostbite effect, which also reduces the HP threshold in order to freeze enemies easier based on the damage you do. And for the gameplay, this isn't empowered, but he does only have about 600 to 700 freeze multi in this current setup, but you can get up to about 3,000, so this damage can more than quadruple from its current point. It has a very high ceiling. There will be 2 build planners below, the current setup, and then of course the luxury build planner, which will put you to the min-max of what you can do here. You can find both of those in the description below. This build guide will be a little bit different. It's going to be the same all the way until we get to where we would normally do the training dummy and show the gameplay. At that point, I'm going to put over to a highlight that Quiet has made that will explain the build even further if you want to watch that. But we're going to go ahead and go over the skills, the passives, and all of the gear and why we chose what we did. So let's start with the skills and let's go ahead and get it done. For skills, we're running Spriggan Form, Maelstrom, Ice Thorns, Eterra's Blessing, and Entangling Roots. For Spriggan Form, we've got 3 points in Rose Meadow for the Spirit Thorns damage. Then we have 5 points in Nightshade for the Poison chance. The reason you want Poison chance is that all gets converted to Frostbite chance when you put your 1 point into Ice Branch. We got 1 point in Ancestral Call. 3 points in Spirit Vortex for the Maelstrom chance on Spirit Thorns, just for a little extra dot damage since you are stacking a lot of elemental damage over time. 4 points in Branch Storm for the Spirit Thorns Pierce chances, will really help with the AoE as well as give you that cold penetration, which will be really nice. And the 1 point in Ancestral Call is going to give you that rage on every time you cast Spirit Thorns cast, and between this and the QuietForMe's belt, it's going to allow you to stay at full rage all the time. If you do struggle with rage, definitely put a couple more points in here. And then 3 points in Iron Bark, it gives you a lot more armor so that you're a lot more tanky. For Maelstrom, this is set up with 4 points in Whirlpool for duration, 2 points in Arctic Chill for chill chance per second. You want to apply chill on hit, and then 3 points in Healing Winds for all that healing so that you will have better survivability. It'll help keep your life full even though you are going to have plenty of leech as well. 3 points in Sleet Footed for a bunch of dodge, which also increases your survivability. 1 point in Power of the Storm, so lightning will strike things once every second if you have at least 6 stacks, which you will if you're constantly casting Spirit Thorns. 1 point in Turbulence, 4 points in Calm for the mana efficiency, 1 point in Windswept, and 1 point in Wind Fury so that you'll get that extra cast speed, and you'll have haste so you can move faster. So you get highly buffed for using this defensively and offensively. Then for Ice Thorns, which this skill will probably go away in the next patch, but for now it's set up just to give you a bunch of extra freeze rate multi and cold damage, with 2 points in Cold Prison, 4 points in Forward Heart, 3 points in Dagger Thorns, 2 points in Bramble Armor, and 4 points in Spell Thorns, so you have that 40% chance every time you get hit for it to proc. If you're taking lots of hits, you're going to have the max stacks of that Forward Heart, which is going to give you that 100% increased cold, and 160% more freeze rate multi, which is going to make Frostbite start doing more damage. So taking some hits is really good, and you will get more tanky while you proc this. There's also 1 point in Nemophily, and 1 point in Thornbearer, and the last 3 points in Bulb Shield. And for Eterra's Blessing, we have this set up so that you can get a bunch of leech. So we've got 3 points in Improved Blessing for healing, 1 point in Purge so it can cleanse you so you don't have cleanse on the potion. So every time that you use this, or every time that it procs, it's going to completely get rid of any side effects that you have on you. If you have any elements like bleed or slow, all that will get removed. 5 points in Conservation for the mana efficiency, 3 points in Rebuke for knockback distance, 2 points in Safeguard for that elemental resist and poison resist. You don't super need it, but it is nice to have. 3 points in Embolden for extra spell damage, and then the 2 points in Lifestream for that 4% spell leech, which is huge for the build. And then for Entangling Roots, we've got 5 points in Shredding Vines, 1 point in Winter Thorns to turn all to cold, 1 point in Ice Shard Roots for the Frostbite chance, 4 points in Entrapped so that it immobilizes enemies, 1 point in Escapable Thicket so that it cannot be dodged, 3 points in Reclamation for leeching a lot of the life and the damage that it does, 3 points in Noxious Grasp, 1 point in Overgrown Garden, and 1 point in Briar Thorn's Wrath. Since you're not manually casting this, if you ever get stunned, what's going to happen is this will automatically proc, it immobilizes things, and it allows you to get out of dodge, which will help with your survive ability. For passives, we've got 25 points in the base Primalist class with 8 points in Natural Attunement, 7 points in Primal Strength, 5 points in Hunter's Restoration, and 5 points in Berserker, so that if you do go down to low life, you will take 25% less damage, which that with Endurance will really help save you down if you do get down to that low level of life. 20 points in the Beastmaster for all the damage reduction, 8 points in your Sane Strength, 4 points in Boarheart, and 5 points in Porcine Constitution, with 3 in Call of the Pack for that extra health. And then the last 60 points are all in the Druid Mastery, with 7 points in Chinness Plating, 5 points in Thicket of Thorns, 5 points in Druidic Prowess, 7 points in Primordial Resonance, 7 points in Blessed Springs, 7 points in River Spirits, 5 points in Focused Wraith, 5 points in Wind in the Leaves, 2 points in Piercing Gale, and the last points with all 10 of them being in Hideskin for that extra health, and it increases your maximum endurance threshold so that it's 30% of your life instead of 20, which is huge for you. Idols, blessing, gear, and everything that you'd want. So for idols, Frostbite chance on cold hit is going to be the best thing you can get. You can get it hybrid with increased aspect of the boar effect, which is going to make you really, really tanky. So throwing on some of those is going to be huge. You can also want to throw in a 1x3 so you can get increased health, and then this is where you can cover the rest of your elemental resist while transformed if you need it. There are quite a few uniques used in this build. You don't have to have the Bastion of Honor. You can wear any shield that you want. The Frozen Ire is pretty common. You'll definitely get one of these to drop, but this is huge for all the increased cold damage, the freeze rate multi that you can get, and then you get additional freeze rate multi per character level. You can also get a legendary version of this and add more freeze rate multi to it, which would be huge for this build. Quiet of the Legacy Force is a pretty common belt as well. This usually drops once every couple of days for me in almost any character that I play. And then the Snowdrift boots, these can be a little bit more rare, but they are a common thing. I've had a few of them drop already. You can definitely find some of these. The pair here does have critical strike avoidance, so if you don't have that, definitely go for the critical strike avoidance blessing to help out with that to get to your 100%. And then the Frostbite Shackles, these ones are a little bit more rare, but you can get these as a boss drop, so just hunt down on the Blood, Frost, and Death timeline. They are rare, but you can get them if you hunt the boss a few times. These give you more freeze rate multi, frostbite duration, and frostbite on hit, which is huge for the build. And then for everything else, you're basically just going for healing effectiveness, increased elemental damage over time. Any of that's really going to help, and then stacking as much life and attunement as possible. And don't forget about some armor shred on hit, as that will really improve your damage as well. And then for blessings, there's nothing that you super need, but you definitely want to get leech. So you can get increased leech rate. This will really help, or you can get spell damage, leech as health. Both of those are going to be huge for the build, as they're really going to bring it in. Another thing you can wear that's another relic is if you get a Tome of Elements that has some LP on it, definitely put some of these stats onto the LP for a Tome of Elements and have even more. That'll really help you with your survivability. And then again, if you're having troubles with increased critical strike avoidance, definitely get the blessing for it on the Reign of Dragons instead of the all resist. Outside of that, everything else you can basically do whatever you want. Block effectiveness is nice because you block all nearby hits with the Bastion of Honor. And then the increased endurance, of course. Getting to that 60% endurance is really nice because you are a high life build. Alright, now this is where I would normally go to the character sheet and then do the skills for you, but I don't have the character, so I'm not going to do that here. Instead, I'm now going to play the highlight version of it from QuietForMe's so that he will explain the entire build in case I missed anything, and then he'll show you exactly what he does with it. But this is the gist of it, and again, below there will be a luxury planner as well that will show you exactly what you want to work towards for end-to-end game, but this is the beginning of it that you can get to like mid-game to starting your empowered run.
This is all you do. You hold down your right click, and the rest takes over. Nothing crazy, nothing wild. This is still relatively low damage for those who are wondering, because my freeze rate multi is only at 500%. So how the Snowdrift boots work is every 10 freeze rate is 2% frostbite effect. That means every 100% of freeze rate is only 20%. I'm only at 100% frostbite effect. Ideally, I'm going to have freeze rate here, on my rings, with LE dots, on my amulet. I'm going to have freeze rate per chill stack on both my helmet and my chest piece with transformation damage over time. And that's going to really help pump up your freeze rate. Plus, once you get a legendary, if you get really lucky, you get like a 2 LP Frozen Ire and you manage to get cast speed and freeze rate onto it, that is really, really good. I also have a relatively kind of sucky rolled implicit on my freeze rate. You could potentially just get 143% just on implicit. And then as you level, you'll gain another 200%. So, there is still a lot of room for growth from the stage. As for idols, I'm looking for a chance to apply frostbite on hit with cold skills, bore effect, or even just like any like extra cold damage. But I like bore effect because it makes that DR effectiveness when it's up that much better. I'm using health plus elemental resistance while transformed, just to help with my res fixing right now. But ideally, you're going to want a Throne of Ambition instead of this little jank setup I have here on idols, and have your resistances fixed elsewhere. Because how Throne of Ambition helps is when you're hitting a boss or a rare enemy, it's going to give you increased cold damage and armor per stack. And at 20 stacks, that's 400% increased cold damage and a lot of increased armor. With a good setup, you will realistically hit anywhere between 10,000 20,000 armor with a Throne Ambition at 20 stacks on a boss. Like for it. This is currently how I feel is a good setup. Now, like I said, there are some caveats, right? Because I do have Chris Drake Avoidance Tier 6 here and on my boots as a legendary, I did not come and take Harmonious Wisdom. Most of you out there will be taking this, and the magic number is going to be 44 attunement. Baseline. That way, when you're leveling, you can get Tier 5 on either ring slot and not be required the non-empowered CA blessing. And that could tie you over until empowerment, where you can make the conscientious choice, pump more into attunement to save yourself having to go for that blessing, and then the alternative is get more poison chance or all res. Or you can potentially go for the CA blessing and use that plus whatever your roll is, you make up the difference in attunement. And then that way you just put more pressure on resistances onto your gear. But I personally prefer the CA onto my gear, especially if I can get it in 2 affixes or less, because I could save the 8 points here minimum and put them elsewhere like I did, like into Aspects of the Might, into more pen, into more cold damage, right? Into Focus Wrath. It now give me more damage, more quality of life features, and it allows me to push up my defenses quicker. Because I could also, if I want to, forego a few damage nodes and just push up to grab the second part of Bore, as my armor becomes more relevant and less effective at higher levels. So, that is my logic and reasoning for it. That's my take on the Winter Wizard. I really like it, and just for the general gameplay, dog attack,